Well, Richie, I appreciate you taking the time today. You have a new film that is going to be hitting theaters. It's called Still Hope, and it deals with an important topic, human trafficking. What was the impetus for this film?
Yeah, uh, it's it's a whirlwind. How we got involved, but I mean, the premise came from a group of filmmakers that were based in Missouri, and they'd done the development work of taking two different girls' true stories as trafficking survivors, combining them into one character, that's Hope, and going through her journey of being abducted, rescued, and then what recovery authentically, looks like. And so that's what's so unique is, the rescue takes place actually halfway through the film. And so it's inspired by the real life stories of two, courageous survivors.
You know, as you were working on this film, looking at such a heavy topic, what were some of the challenges of putting this into a narrative that would help people understand and feel and experience the end goal of what you wanted them to think, feel, and experience?
Yeah, yeah. The ultimately, the film itself is a tool, right, to call people to action. Human trafficking. There's been a lot of awareness out there. Many people are aware of it. Specifically for Still Hope, there were a couple goals that we had in mind with creating it. One, we wanted to show that it can happen to anyone, and it happens domestically here in the U.S. Oftentimes, some previous films, sensationalize the action of it all, or kind of focus on the international aspects, which is certainly true. But we wanted to show one that it could happen to anybody. It takes place in a local midwestern, town. Hope comes from a normal family, two parents, they go to church, she has a sister, just average American girl. And so we wanted to kind of move people, from just this general phase of awareness to really educate and then awaken and mobilize viewers into action. And so the film itself is a tool for parents to show teens, the dangers of, the internet, and safeguarding, who they're talking to online, because that's how Hope kind of stumbles into all of this. Just a guy that she meets online that isn't who he says he is. So ultimately, the effort for the film is that it's really more than a film. It's a call to action for audiences.
How did working on this film challenge you when it came to this issue? Because a lot of people, they're aware of it, they understand a little bit about it. You diving in to craft this story really had to know the ins and the outs. I know you worked with the Pure Hope Foundation to make sure that you had all of that, down, and that these details were all accurate. But how did it shift and challenge you personally?
Mm. It's a good question. I think as the director, I wasn't ready for how emotionally taxing it was going to be to tell a story like this. And the difficult and challenging part really was kind of the second half of the film, that shines a light on what happens after the rescue, right? And that's what's so unique is it's what's so special. And some of my favorite moments of the film are after she is rescued. And there's some beautiful moments where I think, one, in the context of the church, sometimes it falls into the gap of like, we don't really know what to do. And sometimes we think it's about the right verse to say. There's a beautiful moment where Hope comes home and her mom, has such great intentions. She just loves her daughter so much. She's so glad to have her back. But mom just kind of keeps saying all the wrong things. And it's not what Hope needs to hear in that moment. And so for me, it was really impactful taking a look at just recovery, and that, the healing journey is a process. It's not an event. There isn't an exact moment. It sometimes takes years. And so it's been very impactful for me just in my relationships, with, walking through life with anybody that you care about, family or friends, when they've experienced any sort of grief or trauma. It isn't about the words that you say. Sometimes it's just your presence that matters. And then, the community that's needed. I think that's been my favorite part through this whole process. We've been working on this film since 2023. And so the relationships that have been developed as a result of this film, but in the process of creating it, but that idea highlights, how just important community is, especially for, trafficking survivors. That community is a big part of the healing process. So, it's impacted, my life, and then also my wife. Bethany was the lead producer of the film, so tag team couple over here, but it's impacted both of us, and changed our lives really.
What was the most disturbing to you detail? You mentioned before, obviously this character Hope, she's normal, right? She comes from a normal family. And, a lot of times when we think of trafficking, we think of certain metrics and things that are happening maybe in people's lives. What was the most disturbing fact that you uncovered about trafficking in general as you were working on this project?
Mm. Um, I think, yeah, yeah, it can happen right under our noses, and we're not even realizing it. There's a point, and this is true to the story. There's a point where there was a physical altercation, and one of the women that inspired Hope's character was just walking through a store, and she was actually bleeding, and nobody said anything. And so I think there's two elements of that. Of one, it's happening all around us, and that's terrifying. And the fact that two, and that moment, nobody did anything about it is also terrifying. And so, we took that experience, and that's actually, what kind of leads into Hope getting rescued. And there's a, we kind of stuck to that part, and it's like halfway through the film. And so, yeah, I think the fact that it is literally happening right under our noses is terrifying, and that's one of the biggest reasons why we wanted to tell the story.
This is going to hit theaters nationwide, the film Still Hope, and it's coming February 5th through the 9th. What are you hoping for the impact of this film?
Hmm. Yeah, I think, yeah, we want to raise awareness, we want to educate, but again, yeah, we want it to be a tool, and so I want to challenge audiences to help us support, and so that's why we've created the Still Hope Project. Basically, what that is, our executive producer Brent McMinn is so generous and believes in this issue, and all a portion of every single ticket sold is going directly back into ministry, after distributor and, theater fees, all of that stuff. The heart of our, as the filmmakers, we want this to be a tool. And so we have organizations outlined that, purchasing a theater ticket. That's one of the most unique things that's so special about this film, is that directly by purchasing a ticket, those funds are supporting the work that is being done. And so, yeah, the Still Hope Project was created to equip, the everyday person to be like, how can I help? Because sometimes the task feels so daunting. With seeing statistics, it feels almost impossible that just the average person could support an effort like this, and it just feels too overwhelming sometimes. And so you mentioned Pure Hope Foundation. We're very excited to have Natalie Grant and the Hope for Justice organization as well, and several others that are listed on the website. And so, yeah, that's the main goal, is for people to realize that it requires a collective effort of all of us to eradicate this issue.
All right, if people want to grab tickets, again, it's February 5th through the 9th in theaters across the country. Where can they go to do that?
Yeah, they can go to stillhopemovie.com to learn more information and to purchase their ticket today.
Well, I so appreciate you taking the time and joining us today. The film is Still Hope. Thank you for tackling this important subject.
Billy, thank you so much for having me.